This is part 2 of my look at Siduction 17.1 with the LXQt desktop. The reason for this sequel is that when I looked at Siduction the first time, I began to wonder, can I actually use the system? Can I put the software on it that I need to do what I normally do? And the answer was, yes, I can. I did change the desktop a bit. I got rid of the plank and I installed a second panel. I moved the original panel up to the top and I installed a new panel at the bottom. I've done this often enough so that I'm not really going to go into the details here, but I've done it in a number of other videos. Just to show briefly what I have here, I have the menu. I have various launchers, some of which were part of the original menu. I think the configuration center, system settings, the PC man FM file manager, and the Q terminal. And I've added these others. I've added a screenshot. I've added pulse audio, volume control. I've added simple screen recorder, the calculator, Firefox, Synaptic Package Manager, and OpenShot Video Editor. Now to add a launcher to the top panel is relatively easy. Let me just go to Accessories here, and I'll try the character map again. To add this to the panel, all you have to do is drag it over to the launcher area, and you see that the arrow has a little plus by it. Now if you drag it to the wrong place, it has a little no symbol there. You're dragging it to the wrong place. You drag it over to the launcher area and it suddenly appears, and here's the character map. Now you can move these around by right-clicking on them, move left, etc., etc. To get rid of the plank, it was relatively easy. I went into System Settings. I went into Sessions Settings. And I went down to Auto Start and I unchecked plank. It was as simple as that. Then I had to restart, of course. One other thing I want to show you on System Settings is that the window manager by default is the XFWM4 window manager, which is the XFCE window manager. And this explains why I was able to get compositing and window snaps, but it works. It doesn't seem to add too much to the resource overhead. There's obviously provision here for changing window managers, but there is no alternative yet. Others may be available. Click on Search, and I don't want to go into that now, so I'm not going to look at any others. I installed a number of applications using Synaptic, but I want to mention one thing, and this is true generally of anything that is based on Debian Unstable. This is from the Siduction manual, which you can find on their website. And it involves upgrades. Never ever do a distribution upgrade, nor upgrade whilst in X. Always check current warnings on the Siduction main website. These warnings are there for a reason, due to the very nature of unstable Debian SID, which also updates 4 times per day. They mentioned earlier in here you might want to upgrade every week or so, but not 4 times a day. Now they say log out of KDE. Well, we're not in KDE. Go to text mode by doing Control-Alt-F1, log in as root, and then type the following instructions, and you can find them here on their website. Never distribution upgrade or upgrade with Adept or Synaptic. And they give the reasons for doing that, and that is that there are too many complicated dependencies that these utilities may not handle properly. And this is true of any distribution based on Debian Unstable. So I just wanted to mention that. However, I have been able to use Synaptic for installing software that I wanted, and let me just mention a few things that I've installed. I installed GIMP. I think I did that with my first video. I've installed SimpleScan, and may I say that it works with my HP scanner. I have a HP all-in-one. Now, Xane, which comes by default, is perfectly good, but I like SimpleScan, so I installed that also. Under Internet, I installed Thunderbird, the email client that I like. It has an email client already, Prohita or something like that, but I prefer Thunderbird, so I installed that. I installed the HPLIP graphic user interface. In here I have their address book and their fax utilities. I don't actually use either one of those. I do use the HPLIP toolbox, the System Control Center, and it works perfectly. Also, under graphics, I installed ImageScan for Linux, which I use with my Epson scanner, and it works perfectly also. Just a little digression here. I installed the GDebi package installer using Synaptic. And the reason I installed that is I wanted to install some deb files. Now, I've kept the deb files for my Epson scanner for some time because I don't want to have to keep looking them up every time I change distributions. And I have the deb files in one folder, and I have the RPM files in another. So rather than look up the files every time, I just click on these in a certain order, and that installs iScan for Linux. Now, there's always a possibility that in installing oddball programs like this, you could eventually come up with a conflict with some update, but so far, it's worked well. Now, I installed GNOME boxes. Let me just make a few observations about that. This is GNOME boxes. As with Linux Mint, to get GNOME boxes to work with siduction, you also have to install QEMU, lowercase QEMU. That's all it's called. And I installed that with Synaptic and was able to get GNOME boxes to work. Just to show you that it's working, click on New, select a file. I only have one ISO installed here, and that is Gecko Linux. So I'm going to open that. And then click on Create. And as you can see, it's installing Gecko Linux. I'm going to click on full screen. I'm going to press enter here to get it going. So here's Gecko Linux, and the password for the live session is Linux. And this is basically the Cinnamon version. I could make this full screen if I wish, or more or less full screen. Just by going to display, and the closest thing I can get here is 1280 by 720, which is a little lower resolution than my screen is capable of. Apply. Keep this configuration. So anyway, GNOME Boxes works. Just remember to install QEMU also. Now I've also installed OpenShot Video Editor. I had already installed Simple Screen Recorder. I think I had already installed VLC. Just a few loose ends. I was unsure before of what ADSL/PPPoE configuration is. That's an Ethernet configuration tool. Also, I was unsure of what a CINI is, and that is a network configuration tool. Also, Conman happens to be the connection manager. So those are a few mysteries left over from the previous video that I wanted to clear up. I did a couple of other things. Here I got rid of the world clock, and it shows the regular clock calendar from their selection of widgets. I can configure that more the way I want to configure it quite easily. And of course it has a calendar attached to it. I might add I was also able to play a commercial DVD without any additional problems because of the unfree utilities that come with the system by default. By the way, you can get rid of those unfree utilities if you want to. Look on their website. There's a script for doing so if you're a purist. So basically, my conclusion is that siduction is quite usable, for me at any rate, as my main system. It does everything I normally do. It includes all of the software in the repositories that I normally use. They're up to date, but not so up to date as to be highly unstable or experimental. So I'm thinking of installing this and using it as my main system for a while, just to see if I have any problems. So far it looks good. This is XRAM Tech. Thanks for watching.